Happy New Year, everyone. I'm sorry that 2021 has not been the happiest of years so far, but hopefully that will all change. We girls were just saying actually that we think from March time, Springmas, it will be great. We're keeping positive in this group, so it's all good. But thank you very much for joining us today. As you know from the title and from registering, this is a panel, and it is going to be all about side hustlers in publishing. So today I am joined by three lovely, very talented ladies. We've got Chelsea, who runs the Publishing Post. We have Emma, who runs the Slumbering SlothCast. Is that correct? SlothCast, great. And we've got Ein, who does Ein's Notes, has Instagram stories, does it all basically. So we're all going to be discussing our various side hustles, because I'm also a blogger, a journalist and a novelist, because I don't have a social life, and we're going to be discussing that today. So without further ado, let us jump into quick introductions, or quick questions I should say. But should we start off with Ein? What is your side hustle in more detail, and how did you get into it?
Yeah, so hi everyone, really nice to be here. So my side hustle has definitely evolved over the years, and as Ali was mentioning, I do quite a few different things. But essentially, I guess I have built a website which is called Ein's Notes, where I'm collecting my notes around career, books, and events. And that's just like based on my experience, and what that basically evolved into is sharing that experience also in bite-sized information across different social media. I've got a newsletter, and I also have a YouTube channel. So it's all about kind of like sharing with everyone what I have learned in my publishing career journey, so that everything becomes essentially a bit more accessible for others.
It's amazing. I love that you do so much. And I forgot your newsletter. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, you do so much. And as I was saying before, Ein is a very good resource if you're getting into publishing or in publishing and want to progress. Another great resource is the Publishing Post, which is Chelsea's baby. So Chelsea, explain that?
Yeah, so I am the founder of the Publishing Post, which is a bi-weekly magazine. So we're one issue every fortnight. I think we're up to 14 issues, about to be 14 issues now. So we started in June last year. So we're kind of a free resource. You can find us online, and then we also do kind of a PDF release every Monday as well. Yeah.
And if you aren't already subscribed, definitely go subscribe to it. It is packed with information. I learn something new on every page, I swear. And then we also have Emma here, who is the host and creator of the Slumbering SlothCast, which is a mostly publishing orientated podcast. I know you've had a few writers and people on there as well, but Emma, do you want to discuss?
Yeah, so podcast we run weekly. It's evolved now into a creative careers podcast, because we wanted to have a bit more variety on and sort of explore different careers. But I run it with my fiance, who does my producing. So we currently do that as our sort of side project. Yeah, that's pretty much what we do at the moment. So yeah.
It's really exciting. I remember, I think I was like one of the first guests on it way back. Third
person. Yeah. So that was a long time ago now. It's only going on 2 years. So that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. It's amazing. I tried podcasting, and I barely lasted like 3 months before this is so much tech. It's like YouTubers and podcasters I have so much respect for, because there is so much that goes on behind the scenes. But I imagine it's the same for your magazine as well, Chelsea. So just to kind of, we've already touched upon it, but can you go into more detail about how you actually, that was a noise there, how you actually got into your side hustle? Because obviously starting a bi-weekly magazine is quite a big job that you don't just think on a Saturday, I'm going to start that on Monday. So how'd you get into it?
Well, strangely enough, that kind of was how it went. So I kind of noticed before I got into so I was doing my MA at the same time. And before I got into that, I kind of realised that there were loads and loads of resources, but I didn't really know where to start or where to start looking for things. Everything seemed to be in loads of different places, and they were all really, really good resources. But then I found that because I was spending a lot of time on webinars or kind of like those guide kind of type things, I was finding I was spending quite a lot of money on those. Which as a student, if you're going to a webinar that is only £5, but then once you've gone to 5 or 6, they tend to kind of rack up. I also realised that there wasn't really much chance because we're in the pandemic by that point, that experience was quite hard to come by as well. So first of all, I thought maybe I'd start kind of like a newslettery type thing. I kind of put the idea out there, and then it very quickly turned into a lot more interest than I'd anticipated within a few hours. So then I kind of thought, well, we're here now, we may as well start a magazine. So yeah, that kind of grew, the teams kind of grew from a few people into just the content teams. Then we decided to have editorial, kind of proofreaders, typesetters, design, all just kind of, and then we wanted to make it free as well. So my number one thing was that I wanted to make it accessible, because there are loads and loads of things, but if you can't afford to pay for them, or a course you can't afford to buy, then you're excluding half of the people that want to read or learn. And then also, I guess, networking as well is quite hard if you're really new. So when I was first starting, you're really scared, because everybody seems to be a publishing professional who knows everything that they're doing, and you're just kind of on the sidelines like, whoa, I'd love that job, but you don't know where to start. So I kind of felt like if we had a platform where everybody could not only network with themselves, but I guess if you could read, say, the Industry Insights feature, which is an interview with a publishing professional or two every issue, you can kind of network without having to speak to them directly. If you haven't got the confidence to do that yet, you can still learn from them. I thought of the idea one morning, and then by the next morning I was like, we're doing this, I'm going to make it work. And the deadline that I set myself was probably a bit too ambitious, but we made it. It was just a very stressful 3 weeks.
It's really exciting though. I mean, it just goes to show that my assumption was completely wrong, and a side hustle can be born overnight with just a really great thought and this kind of motivation behind it. I mean, and because obviously you're the events manager at PRH, sorry if I got your title wrong, and you have all your platforms and everything else, but how did they come, when did you kind of make that decision to suddenly start your newsletter and your Instagram stories and your publishing blog? I couldn't remember the word blog.
Yeah, so I guess essentially it wasn't everything that you see now has happened before with a different name and a slightly different focus, probably like a few years ago. So I had a go at having a website for a while, and I was very much trying at the beginning of my career to kind of showcase my passion for books. So I was just thinking, how do I managed to basically do that whilst not having a job that is particularly related to books. I was just waitressing and doing lots of jobs that I'm sure a lot of publishing hopefuls are doing as well. And so essentially it was initially a food blog, then it became an events blog, and then I was just like, this is not where my passion is, as people probably can tell. And so as I was kind of developing in my career, I basically realized that what I really loved to talk about was career and personal development. And then actually that brought me also to have the job that I have now, which is very much focused on those kind of books as well. So it was definitely a journey, which is something that I want everyone to take away from it. You don't have to get it right the first time. You probably won't, and that's okay as well. But when you do get it right, it's quite satisfying to then have that project where you feel like, yeah, that's definitely the thing for me. And when you do have that, I think also you feel so much more confident, because you know that that's the one thing that you can do the best in the best way possible. And I feel like it's probably the same for all of you as well, and all the things that you found. As soon as you kind of get the right thing, it's a lot easier as well to put the extra time and extra effort.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm not sure how many people know this, but when I started my blog, which was my initial side hustle, it was a beauty blog, because I thought I was going to be the next Zoella, which is total rubbish. I won't swear. And then it became a book blog, then it became a lifestyle blog, and now it's a book, careers, lifestyle, fashion, whatever. Basically, if an opportunity comes my way and I want to do it, I'll take it. So it is interesting how things evolve. And something I tried, as I was telling you guys earlier, was a podcast, which I did really enjoy, but I found it so hard to kind of keep up the momentum. So for Emma, creating your amazing podcast, which is so insightful and is so continuous, and it's been 2 years. I mean, where did that idea come from, and how have you kept up your motivation for so long?
There have been moments where you're just like, I don't want to do this anymore, but you keep doing it because you know that it's the right thing to do. Initially, it started back in April 2019. I was sort of looking for an outlet. As someone who is not a big city person and lives in the southwest, I live in Devon and I absolutely love it here. There was not a lot. It was costing me money coming up to London quite a lot to do work experience. So I thought, why not create my own work experience for myself and interview people in publishing? Originally it was publishing. And then I put a tweet out, got such a really good response, booked people in for interviews, and then it just sort of took off from there. And then as soon as we got that, we got opportunities to go to record a series for Literacy Live in Portsmouth. So we got that opportunity to go out there and do that. And then I also got involved with the Quercus event. So I started getting, partnerships with, getting with books and things like that. Because I spoke to Anna, which is lovely, she's lovely, sort of, you know, building networking from that. But it's sort of more turned into creative careers now, because publishing is good to talk about and see with careers, but it's kind of mix things up a bit and speak to other people so we could try and broaden our range. It is tiring, but as long as we basically backlog our interviews weeks in advance, so it feels like less pressure, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does. That sounds really good. And actually, it kind of ties in with my next question for all of you, which I'll start with you, Emma, because you've just already started answering it, really, which is how would you say your side hustle has been beneficial to your career, be it in publishing or be it in any other kind of form of career in general? Do you think it's been beneficial?
I'm still working in retail at the moment, so it's more something now, I think, because I love where I live and things like that. I kind of want to, you know, use that opportunity to sort of bring more of an identity to publishing in the Southwest. I feel like we're quite sort of quiet down here. I know we have the SYP Southwest, which I'll be currently taking up a role for that shortly, but I kind of want to bring more of a view down here. I think we need to sort of expand more about that. So that's what I've been working on at the moment. I'm also working on a homeware potential idea as well. It's because I'm in nesting mode at the moment in the house, but it's just, there's lots of little things. I just try to make sure that we can keep on top of the stuff like weeks in advance. So we took 2 weeks off during Christmas, and then we took another week off because I didn't expect to get engaged. So that was another week. But like, I just need to take a week off just to like come down from that. So it's just like making sure we're prepared. There have been times where we're like, oh no, we haven't done this, because my fiance works like back-to-back shifts, so he works 12-hour days. So we're just trying to make sure that we're planned, basically, and have everything ready.
I love that. And congratulations on your engagement. It's so, I keep seeing your ring. It's really nice.
Thank you. I love it.
Good choice. You've got a good choice there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's really exciting. I mean, I expect in like 10 years' time to hear all about the amazing Southwest publishing because of Emma Ronan. You'll be like one of the 150 in the bookseller, I imagine, or something.
Fingers crossed.
Perseverance and motivation.
Yeah.
I'm a big supporter. But Chelsea, how would you say your side hustle, or has it not been beneficial to your career? Because I know you're currently working at Happiful, which is an amazing magazine. But did the publishing post help you get that position, or what's been your experiences?
I would definitely say yes. One, because they literally told me that I got the job because I had the magazine. One, I think because they're only 3 or 4 years old at the magazine side of things, and they had said obviously the things that you would have done in the run-up we are identical essentially to the things we've done, just on a smaller scale. But I definitely think that in terms of interviews and that type of thing, you can really utilise the side hustle in that situation, or applications. I think as well, because I could kind of prove those type of things, like hiring in a pandemic, you're going to be at home, you're going to be working from home. So one of the questions in my interview was like, how do you do kind of self-motivation? Like, how do you work at home by yourself? So I think to be able to say, well, actually, I have a side hustle. This is what it is. This is what I've done. Worked constantly through the pandemic at home. So I'm motivated by myself. There's nobody kind of telling me what I need to do. That is proof in itself that the magazine is then successful. So that helped, I think, but also just the qualities that you gain from it, that in a hopeful's position, which I was very recently, all of those things that you can then say, actually, the details of what I've done, here they are, here's how it relates to the job. So just starting your career, I definitely think it's probably one of the best times that the side hustle helps.
That's very true. And I mean, it's really interesting with the side hustle and the pandemic right now in that situation, because like you say, that self-motivation really is key, particularly in publishing, but to be honest, in any other industry as well. Self-motivation and having that initiative to kind of go and do things is really, recruiters love it. I can tell you that. I used to work in recruitment. They love it. But Aim, what are your experiences working? Because obviously you're at PRH, which is a really established publishing house. Has it been helpful to you in your role as an events manager, or has it helped you develop skills maybe a bit quicker?
Yeah, definitely. I think it hasn't been helpful in the way that perhaps I thought it would be at the beginning of like starting all these side projects. I think when I was like earlier on in my career, I thought maybe if I have like a food blog, I'm gonna start working at a publisher that does beautiful cookbooks, and it didn't work quite like that. But yeah, as you mentioned, I think it was like skills. So for me, it was really good to just like being able to accelerate my learning around, social media, digital platform, but also like networking. and just like really understanding like the power of brand. I treat myself as like a personal brand when I look at my platforms, and obviously that's quite important for publishers, for author care. Just being able to understand, I think, like the creative side of something really does help you if you are in contact with talent in publishing. And I don't know if anyone else has found the same, but it's definitely been something that I'm like, wow, okay, there's so much work and so much heart that gets put into everything. But it is, for me, like my side hustles are very separate to my job. So obviously my colleagues are kind of know about everything that I do. It's not a secret. I'm not trying to keep it secret, but it's not something that, for example, I've ever discussed in interviews. And I was thinking about this because I was like, I actually have never really mentioned what I do in interviews. But I think it's because like the jobs that I do are quite sort of like focused on like client and customer care. And so it's quite difficult for me to just translate that. But it's certainly helped me to accelerate my growth as a professional in general.
Yeah, that's really like, it's nice to know that when you have like a side hustle, you're not only developing skills, but you kind of can progress in your job as well. So it's not just something to have at a hopeful level, but also something you can maintain if you're at a junior level, or if you're editorial assistant or any assistant role. And if you start a side hustle at that point, it's still beneficial to your career. So that's really interesting, because I think the next question I have is, in your opinions, if you could name up to 3 skills or personality traits, what do you think are the best skills or personality traits you should have if you're starting a side hustle, be it at a hopeful level, at assistant level, executive, etc.? So Chelsea, what do you think the best personality traits and skills are to have at the initial stages?
Yeah, I'd definitely say motivation, and I think we will talk about it a lot, but I do think it is probably the number one, just because whether you're a hopeful and your full-time job is literally applying for jobs, because we all know that is a full-time job in itself, or once you're into the industry, if you are doing like a 9-to-5 job and then you kind of finish work and then you do have to then jump onto your side hustle, you have to be motivated to be able to do it. And it does help if you love it, like only do it if you love it, because I think otherwise I quickly found that if I didn't like what I was doing, then you don't want to spend like 4 hours on your like Monday evening when you're already tired doing something that you don't like. But if you love it, then you'll naturally be motivated. But yeah, definitely motivation is probably the biggest, because it does take up way more time than I think maybe you anticipate it to take up. Even if it's only kind of like a blog, like most of us, if you've had a blog, will know how much work goes into a blog, and it may seem on the outside, oh, it's just a few posts here and there, but it's not. And it takes a lot of work and everything that goes into it. So yeah, if you're not motivated, it can be a really hard slog, which you don't want on the side of everything else.
Yep, definitely motivation is key. What do you think, Emma? Do you think there's any other personality traits or skills that one should have before starting a side hustle?
Persistence, potentially. You kind of have to be on it constantly. There have definitely been days where I just don't want to do anything, but you know that you have to get things done to a deadline. So just make sure you're organized. Just make sure that you know roughly when your project's going to go out. If you don't know when it's going to go out, then and you need to extend by a few days, that's not a problem. You just have to make sure that you've got a calendar and you put everything when it needs to go out on certain days, and you're in contact with that person if you're, for example, interviewing them. Yeah, so that's basically my advice. Just be organized if you can be.
It's true that if you've got a full-time job or even a part-time job and you're doing a side hustle, organization really is a key part of it. Even if you're just like me and doing off the cuff, I still have days I need to get this blog post sorted by this day for it to go live on that day. And particularly if you're working with others, as you do in a podcast of interviews, it's really important. But what about you, Aim? What do you think are the main skills or traits that someone should have before they start a side hustle?
I'd say in terms of traits, I think you need to just be passionate. Whatever you pick, just really put your heart and soul into it, because it's just going to come alive. And as Chelsea was saying, like, it's going to really help you to find that motivation to put in the extra time that we all do, because, you know, we all have the same hours in a day, and you just have to make a choice if you want to go for it. But also, like, I'd say just to be, when you start it, to just have the grit to continue and just really wait for the results, because it's not going to come overnight. Whatever you do, if it's something that requires to have like some, you know, metrics, or some people to just actually interact with the content, some people to read, subscribe, whatever. Now there's like literally a number for everything. It will take a bit of time, and it's also going to take a bit of time. And I had an issue with it at the beginning. For you to just create the content that you were dreaming of, you might not be able to do quite the thing that you were envisioning it. You're not going to become, you know, like a super accomplished writer overnight, as you probably can tell us, Ellie. It takes like, you know, a long time. And I think when I started my side hustles, I was very much like, it's fine, I'm just gonna get all these kind of like things, and like I'll get, you know, I'll just create all these visuals and all these things and write all this, like surely it can't be that hard, but it is. And so if you just have it in mind that it's going to be a journey and you're going to enjoy the journey, that is going to help you kind of keep going and really see the good results, which are going to come with time.
I love that. It's like passion is all three of those traits really are key things. And it's like with passion, I always say, when people ask about my side hustles and why I do it, I always use the phrase, first comes heart, then comes hustle. Because if you don't enjoy doing something, if you don't want to do it before you start it, so if you're just starting a side hustle because you want to progress or because you want to have something on your CV, it's not the same. But whereas if you start a side hustle doing a Bookstagram account because you really love photography, you really love books, that is going to show so much better on like your CV and also on the platform you're using. So it's kind of something I've been asked a lot since I've started these workshops, actually, is when discussing side hustles, that is, it's a lot of people have said that it's becoming more common to see side hustles on a CV. And the hard thing is to just make your side hustle stand out. So, I mean, my answer to that would be, it is all about heart rather than the hustle itself. It really is about passion. But Emma, what would you say? How would you recommend someone to get their side hustle to stand out, or their skills they've learned from their side hustle to stand out, not only on their CV, but maybe in their interview as well?
Oh, goodness me, that's quite a question. I would just talk about it as if, you know, it's something, as you said, it's something you're passionate about, then just go for it. I don't see any problem in just going, you know, exploring that. And then, you know, I've had a couple of interviews where people said like, oh, can you tell us about this? And I'm like, well, I do this. And I just try to link my skills to what they're after in an interview. So if you know that, for example, like they're looking for admin, but you don't have any admin experience, I have a lot of things to do. I practice with like spreadsheets, or I practice with like emailing. I just try to make sure that my skills relate to the job role. So if you're going to say, well, actually my side hustle relates to this, it will sort of make you stand out a bit more on your CV, because it shows you're pushing initiative also to apply for that job role. So they might go, actually, this is a bit more interesting than just having, you know, than doing this. So just experiment and just try and make sure that you're passionate about it, and then just keep being persistent. I remember like our first couple of weeks, our numbers were like really low, and there'll be like times where the numbers go up and down. And you're just like, oh, what are we doing wrong? But sometimes it's just could be the timing, could be anything. So just be persistent and just be ahead of the game, really.
But Chelsea, what would you say? How would you recommend to people to get their side hustle to really stand out in an interview or an application process, particularly when they're a publishing hopeful?
Yeah, I don't know, I think the skills thing is probably number one, but I think also, as well as skills, you could probably be a bit more creative with like the values of the company in comparison to your side hustle, because a lot of the things, say if there is so for me, for example, it was useful for me because where I have the post that we talk about accessibility and things being free and people having access to things when they need them, that was also a big value at Happiful with the content that they have for a very different reason. But then I could still say, well, actually, I not only do this content for giving people information, but actually it's accessible to people, it's free. It also gives people the platform to have experience if they want it. So you're kind of giving back, which was also a value of Happiful. So you can be creative. Like, I don't think it has to tally up completely. The more creative you are, the interviewers probably will be like, I know, but if they haven't thought of it, then you're only going to like pique their interest. I don't think things have to line up as like 2 + 2 and then they have to slot together. But I think if the more creative you are, the more chance you've probably got of standing out, because even if it's not totally right, you'll have said something that nobody else would have said. So
that's certainly true. I have never thought of comparing it to like the values of a company. And that is actually thinking about magazines and publishing. A lot of the values that you'll see on their manifestos, on their website, be it a corporate or an independent, will match up with your initiative and your perseverance and your passion and everything else. So that's a really, really good answer. I'm very impressed. See, I'm in interview mode and I'm like, yes, tick, hired.
Yay, get the job.
But it's true, it's a really strong answer. I mean, Aine, how would you recommend getting your side hustle and skills to stand out, particularly because you work in events and social media and kind of that customer care? How do you have any other ideas or any other tips?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, yeah, those are like amazing, and I think definitely go for that because it's just gonna like really impress it. I'm actually working on my next video, which is going up tomorrow, which is gonna be on CVs. And one thing that I am sharing is just like how to make sure that you include all the things that you do, because sometimes you have like quite a few things. They might be small, but you have quite a few things that you want to include. And similarly with the side hustle, I think the thing that came to mind is you either like just really impress someone with something that is so even like just slightly out of like publishing, even if it's something I can't remember now what it was, but one time when I was recruiting, I was like reading a CV and there was this person that had a very peculiar hobby, and immediately I was just like, wow, it just brings up your personality so much. I think your side hustle tells a lot about you already, so just like, you know, make sure that you don't shy away from maybe sharing something that you think, oh, this is not something that publisher will want to see, because it might just impress them. But also think about how you can showcase it, and this is like not possible all the time, but if you're applying for a job that lets you put any kind of attachments, think about creating like a small portfolio. Don't give anything for granted, because sometimes the person that's recruiting may not be someone that is familiar with the platform that you're working with or the kind of numbers that you're seeing. So whatever you think is your strong point of your side hustle, just make sure that you kind of like showcase it. And especially obviously if it's anything to do with like marketing or content or creativity, make sure it's really beautiful so that people can think, wow, okay, this might not be like relevant to what we're actually doing day to day, but clearly this person has got impressive skills.
So true. I'm just thinking of all the side hustles, people I know, the side hustlers in the industry and outside, who have these amazing, beautiful bookstagrams and blogs and YouTube channels. And I mean, I was saying to you earlier, your YouTube channel is so professional. I can only dream of being that professional. I'm just no makeup, no hair, Instagram stories. But yeah, that's brilliant. So just quickly before I ask the next question, I just want to remind everyone that's attending and just watching this panel that this is going to be, first half is going to be kind of a Q&A that I've already prepared, and then the second half is going to be questions from the audience. So please do put them in the chat. You can start thinking about them now. I've got about 2 or 3 more questions left to answer the guys, and then we'll go into the audience chat. So do start preparing your questions now. But on that note, the next question I have is, do you have any plans on expanding your side hustle in any way? And if so, can you give us a sneak peek of what you're thinking about? So Emma, have you got any additional plans in the works?
Yeah, so ideally we'd like to start being able to sort of monetize the podcast in future. So we're sort of setting up plans. So one day, hopefully, I can have a bit of work from home sort of situation when we are looking at starting a family, which will be really nice because I'd love to stay at home being with my kids. So that'd be lovely. And then have something to work whilst I'm doing that. So that's kind of the thing we're working on at the moment, sort of building a website, sort of building, you know, other things. But also I'm working on other projects. Instead, like I'm hopefully going to work on my homeware sort of stuff. Which is completely randomly different, but it's always good to experiment with new things. But that's sort of the angle we're going for. It's sort of trialing to get the website up and running, trialing different areas, and then hopefully trying to figure out ways that we can get people that actually enjoy the podcast, maybe like, you know, other things we can try and see if they would, you know, be interested in that kind of angle. So that's kind of what we're working towards at the moment, but it's going to take about a few months because of how crazy life is, but we'll get there.
It's so exciting, and I can't wait for this homeware line. I am a massive home decor fan, so I'll be like, Emma, what's the next thing? I want to buy it. It's so exciting. I love this. And Chelsea, I mean, the Publishing Post has only been around since June for you, July for us. So, I mean, it feels like it's been around for years. It is that detailed. It has so much in it. I mean, do you have plans for expansion at the minute? What's going on there?
I don't think I'd cope if we expanded anymore. We've got 130 people or so now, and we are still kind of we still recruit like weekly, or I still get emails and things with people that onboard and move into teams. So in that way, I guess we are still expanding, but nothing major at the moment. Potentially we have thought about, so me and Dominic, who's the managing editor, have thought a little bit about ads on the site, just so that we could perhaps monetize those and then provide InDesign licenses for anybody that wanted to join but can't afford the InDesign license, or just things like that, where if you need things to be able to participate, just to kind of fund that. But then ads is a whole new crazy world, and it's on my to-do list, but it's a big task to kind of look into and learn about. So I will get around to it at some point, hopefully in the next few months. But yeah, maintenance at the moment, because it is crazy already.
It's a lot. I mean, as someone that works in marketing and then deals with ads on a daily basis, I can tell you now that after being in marketing for 4 or 5 years, I still feel like the ultimate novice when it comes to advertising. So, I mean, not to scare you off, it's a brilliant thing.
Yeah.
And it's the basics are useful. It's like when you get to the metrics level, and some of the people I talk to at Google and Facebook, it's like, how do your brains function? How does that happen? But I mean, that's so exciting. I can't wait to see how all of these expand. It's going to be brilliant. And then Aine, I mean, every time I look at your social media account, I swear there's like another project pops up. It's Instagram stories, and it's a newsletter, then it's your amazing website and YouTube channel. I mean, what's next? This is amazing.
Gosh, I'm just going to keep everything going, I think, at this point. But I think for me, this year is going to be like, there's going to be a lot of focus on YouTube, because I just want to basically like be able to provide as much content as possible. And sometimes, obviously the blog is like fine, but I think there's like a lot more kind of interest maybe in like just video content. So, and that takes a lot of time, which I did not anticipate when I started it, but now I know. And so that's just going to be like the biggest thing. And also because eventually I'd like, as sort of as Emma and Chelsea have mentioned, to kind of like being able to monetize. And really I was thinking, how can you do that? I know obviously the publishing industry is not an industry where there's a huge amount of money. I think accessibility is like a really important thing. And so if we're able to kind of like, if I'm able to support my side hustles, which obviously I think there's going to be a question later on about money, but they do require a money investment, that'd be quite nice to just make them kind of self-sustained and don't need to like kind of worry about bleeding money left and right to try and maintain lots of stuff. So that's probably going to be my focus.
It's really exciting. I mean, just so everyone knows as well, after the chat, I'm going to be on Twitter for about an hour or so afterwards, and I will make sure to share links to every single one of these lovely ladies' amazing side hustles. So do make sure you follow Aine's channel, that you go and subscribe to the publishing post, and you follow and like the Slumbering SlothCast as well. So the next 2 questions I have are from readers or attendees even that couldn't attend tonight. And the first question, as Aine mentioned actually, is if you're happy to answer, guys, how much money have you invested in your side hustles, if any at all? And what's your financial advice for any potential side hustlers? I mean, Aine, do you want to carry on this conversation because you've already started talking about it?
Yeah, so it is hard to respond up to how much money I've spent, simply because I've been doing it for a few years. But what I would say is everything that I can get for free, I get for free. So every single thing that you can subscribe to that is just like a free place where you can like modify your pictures if you're thinking about social media or websites. I would say definitely start with all the free stuff. I've never, if it's helpful to anyone that is thinking of starting a side hustle, I have never invested any money before I was sure that I was kind of like going forward with it for the long term. So I never invested in, for example, a domain for the website until I knew that that was the domain that I wanted to use. I didn't invest in any equipment. So my first YouTube videos were just done on my Samsung, very old Samsung actually. The audio was appalling and it was a bit blurry, but whatever. So I think like don't let money kind of like stop you from starting. It's completely fine. I think everyone accepts it at the beginning. It's just the way it is. And then when you do start deciding to invest money, I would say, and that's just like the advice that I wish someone had given me, don't feel like it's wrong to get to the point where basically what Emma and Chelsea and I were saying, where you need to find a way to kind of sustain it. Because I think there's a bit of I don't like the culture, if I'm honest, that there is in publishing around sort of like trying to make money, whether it's extra money or money within the industry. And I think you can fall on the trap of kind of like trying to support everything, which, it's not fair. You're putting in extra work and you're providing value. So think about how you want to do it. But I'd say just kind of like don't get overexcited basically with the amount of money that you spend on it, because I do think that's quite dangerous, and probably it's going to get you more stress than results.
Yeah, so I mean, from my experience, I started my blog 7-8 years ago. I didn't buy a domain or a really nice design because I'm not a web designer, but when I did, it came to, I think, about, I pay my domain each year, which is about £120 a year, and the website design was about 30. But I mean, that was the first big investment I made in myself, and that was during the year that I was finishing uni and unemployed, trying to get into publishing, because that was when I invested in my side hustle to progress in my career. But that was 2 or 3 years after I started this project. I knew I could sustain it and I enjoyed it. So yeah, it is true. It's not a sort of thing that I would tell people, go out and immediately buy the most expensive equipment and do this and do that. You don't need to until you've tried it and found out if you enjoy it or not. But I mean, Emma, you were saying that I think you mentioned your fiance's bank account, but obviously when you're podcasting, you do need some form of equipment. So did you spend any money on that, or did you kind of start with like phones or what you had already? What was your experiences?
So Dale was already doing a journalism degree at the same time as I was finishing up my English degree. So he already had a lot of the kit already with a lot of his coursework. So basically a lot of the kit he got was secondhand. So a lot of the stuff brand new would be astronomical, but we got it all secondhand, pretty good, and it's all been brilliant. I think our Tascam is the only thing that broke that we cannot fix, which is the little connector like between the computer and records everything. But we managed to use like really good software. So we used Streamlabs. I did this when I talked on the workshop that I did a couple of months ago, but we used this site called Streamlabs, which I think is free to record everything on. Audacity, I think, is free, so we do a lot of that. The only thing I said I pay for is our sort of platform that you have to pay a hosting fee, probably a bit like a website, but you have to pay like for your, what's it called? It's like your platform basically where you put all your sort of thing on it. So you have a centralized hosting service like Podbean or SoundCloud or anything. But the good thing about it is that you pay about £90 a year. It's not really a lot. And basically that goes to everything. So it goes to like Google, it goes to Spotify, it goes, so it's from one, you can control it from one place, but just goes out. So I don't think a lot of the stuff we had stuff already. So the microphones are pretty good. Like I don't do any of the tech stuff, so I don't know about anything to do sound recording, but it's not I would suggest, like, if you're going to do it, just put a little bit of money aside every month. You know, you're going to spend some money on coffee. Like if you want to pay for like a domain, like pay for a platform like Podbean, then you only do like a couple of months free, and then you have to pay for it if you want to go up afterwards. But I just put like a little bit of money aside, so you can pay for it
if you want to. It's investing in yourself, and like you say, a lot of places do free trials beforehand, so it's definitely try those before you buy the entire thing. But so it is using what you have and being creative, and I think that's really exciting. I mean, Chelsea, obviously you have so many contributors now, and you've talked about InDesign already, but did you have to buy anything special for the publishing post or kind of invest in yourself?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of that same thing. While I was finishing my MA, I also had a part-time job and then did freelancing at the same time. So that was kind of where my income stream was coming from. So with that, I just had to make a decision basically that everything that came from the part-time job I would essentially put aside and then use for things that helped me progress in a way that I wanted to. I couldn't spend it on anything else. I couldn't leave the house. So from that, we had to buy the domain and stuff like that, and InDesign licenses, which is a monthly thing. But it's kind of something you can't get out of when you have to produce the magazine. So it is unfortunate. InDesign is one of those annoying things that it is kind of a standard that you have to use. There are alternatives which we did do actually when we first started the post. Anybody that wanted to be a typesetter could use I think there was a cheaper version of Affinity, which we just kind of accommodated and merged them through, which is one of the things that we'd always said, that if there were any other versions we could find, then we just spend the time kind of merging them, and not, because I don't think people should have to pay for that type of thing. But yeah, I guess it's just one of those things with so many contributors. There's always that I don't want anybody to have to pay for anything, which I guess means I just have to pay for it in the long run. But it's also something that I decided that I wanted to do for progression. I wouldn't say it's expensive. It's just one of those things that if I decide not to buy a coat, then I put it into the website. So, but I think that's with the ads that we were talking about with the monetization. I do think that what Aim was saying about how it gets demonized, that you want to monetize things, and it's one of those things that if we were to make money on ads, then we'd be able to re-put it into paying for the website, or paying for people to have InDesign, or just paying for paying for things that then nobody would have to pay for, type thing, or nobody would have to cover the expense. So it's definitely something they need to look into. But for now, it's just one of those things that you just kind of put money aside that you wouldn't spend on other things.
Yeah, it's definitely a personal investment. I mean, lockdown has been slightly beneficial in that regard because we haven't been spending our money going out. I mean, with regards to the demonizing money thing, is such an interesting topic, which I could go on for ages, but I won't, because we have tons of questions in the Q&A. But just to touch upon it, I didn't learn about self-investment really until I became a freelance journalist, because I was writing all this content and sending it to people, they were publishing it, and I realized as the more I did it and my profile built, I was like, I'm worth more and they can pay me more. And it's kind of the same thing when you're growing a blog, when you're growing a platform with over 1,000 subscribers, when you've got amazing podcasts that people listen to every week. It's as you grow that audience, you realize investment is key to continue to grow, which I think is actually one of the questions that someone has asked, but I'll come to that in a second because I will go in order. So the first question I have, which is I think the most popular question to ask a side hustler, is what are your tips for balancing full-time jobs and your side hustle? So Aine, if I come to you first, what are your best tips for managing a full-time job and a side hustle?
Best tips. Do you know what? I don't know if I'm the best person to answer this because I feel like I'm still trying to figure out how to balance it all without slightly losing my mind every other month. I would say just don't overcommit to yourself or to anyone else if you're collaborating with anyone. Just make sure that you're clear on what you want to achieve. So even if it seems like quite small, even if it's just like one blog post a month, but you feel like you commit to that for the year, then do that, rather than just trying to do like a lot of things. Also, just remember that it is just a side hustle. So if you don't get to do something, it's fine. Your 9 to 5, if you do have a 9 to 5, should be like, or your job in general should be the sort of the priority. I would say don't do the thing that I feel like there was like this thing going on, and I don't remember when because time is like a bit of a blur at the moment. But at some point there were people like saying like you need to do like the sort of 5 to 9 and was it 5 to 9 and then like 5 to 9 again, like with your side hustle. Please don't do that. It's like really knackering, and I don't know, I just wouldn't personally recommend it. I feel like you're probably better off saying I'm going to work for half an hour a day on my side hustle every day, and then I'll just keep, I don't know, Sunday completely off, just have a day when you don't have to do anything, and then Saturday I might once a month content batch. That's kind of what I do. But I would say basically like just give yourself a structure, because if you don't and you really love what you're trying to do with your side hustle, you're just going to end up doing it all the time, which I would not recommend for sort of like longevity and health and all that.
Is that heart, first comes heart, then comes hustle, guys. I'm going to keep repeating that mantra. I'm going to patent it. But yeah, I mean, Emma, you mentioned this before as well, because you were saying about how you do things in batch and do them so much further in advance so that you have that kind of space to take a week off if you need to. I mean, after you got engaged, for example, you got to take that lovely week off. So, I mean, is that your best tip, or do you have any other tips you would recommend?
That's basically what I'd suggest. If you're gonna do episodes, I did make the mistake the first week. We recorded 8 episodes in one day. Don't do that. Don't do it. It's stupid and it's tiring, and you just sound you sound like the worst person, most uninterested person in the world by like the end of it. Don't do it. It's really bad. I would just do 2 a day if you can. We've done, like, for example, this Friday, we're booking 2 interviews because I tend to do it on days that Dale is off, so he can, instead of me panicking because the internet went off, which actually did happen when we had Laura Jane, a big author on, and the internet cut off and I was panicking and it was probably the worst day ever. So that's why I was trying to make sure I've got a safety net on the back. So just make sure that you're prepared, and then you've got everything sort of, for example, like our images, like the headshots, we make sure we've got on the email. We're trying to make sure that the trailers go out on certain days. They don't take too long to make. So we try to do like 3 or 4 in a week, and then that means I can relax and let him do the editing without me having to worry. All I have to do is just do the trailer, pick the trailer sounds. That's literally it, and just post on social media. So I love my life when it comes to doing it.
I love this. There's organisation and teamwork there, definitely. I mean, Chelsea, you do a monthly one, so I suppose your time constructs are completely different to mine, where I just post whatever I like when I like. You have like a set regime. So, I mean, what's your tips for balancing your daytime with the side hustle?
Yeah, I would say I kind of do everything that everyone says don't do, and I've probably done that for about 6 months now, and it was a bad idea. I kind of just work 24/7 because I didn't have a choice at the start. Like, there were just things that needed to get done, and it's bi-weekly, which comes around so quickly. And yeah, having had my full-time job now for about a month or so, I've had to kind of realise pretty quickly that it's not sustainable. I've been doing it for about a month now, where I just work 9 till 5, where I finish at 5ish, and then I work until like 9 p.m. trying to get things done, and then don't have a weekend. And I think I've realised now that actually you just have to give yourself a break. That it like it's not the end of the world if you have to do something tomorrow, or you only spend an hour and a half or an hour a day, or if things just slightly late, or if a tweet doesn't make it out, then it doesn't make it out. As much as the inside of my head is like, no, every single thing must be done, it's not sustainable. There will always be a time when, with any side hustle, that you miss something, or a social media post didn't go out, or something was messed up, or the contents page numbering was wrong, or that colour was wrong. It's just going to happen. And I think after 6 months I just realised that actually, although it is my baby and I want it to be the best that it can be, there is always going to be a time where one thing is wrong, and probably nobody else but me will notice it, and there might be an issue that goes out, and then I notice a week later, oh, that word was wrong, or that page was in the wrong, but nobody's going to know that apart from you. So I think just along with most things, like the applications as well, like it's good to just give yourself a break. And I think everyone in the publishing industry is quite good at giving off the air that you have everything together and that everything is immaculate and you're doing so well, and your social media might look great, but if you're like, I don't know, I can't remember the analogy with the swan like underneath the water just like paddling, but I feel like that's what we're all doing, but we just seem to have an illusion that everyone's doing great. But really, there are times when every single person doesn't want to do their side hustle, or they're struggling, or they don't have any motivation. But I think it's quite important that everybody talks about that, because if you're somebody that's starting a side hustle and you think, oh well, they've got everything together, they do everything all of the time, I must work all the time, actually that's not sustainable, it's not healthy, and you'll probably burn out quite quickly. And then we should all probably just talk about that a bit more.
Yeah, no, I entirely agree with that. And actually it kind of ties in nicely to the next few questions we had, which is all about how do you keep up motivation for your side hustle. And something I would say is that, an example from me, in December, I took off an entire month from my side hustles because I was just burnt out from work and from my sister's wedding and from COVID in general. So I didn't do my marketing workshops, I didn't do any journalism, I just did nothing. And I hadn't realized how much I needed that break, or how much it would motivate me to do so much more in January. Just by taking that break, it actually helped me to sustain my side hustle, which you might think is the complete opposite of what would happen. Like, I'm taking a break and my side hustle is going to go downhill. It's not, it actually benefited my side hustle. So I really agree with that. And it kind of ties in nicely, as I said, with this question about staying motivated. I mean, Aine, with your full-time job and the amount of side hustles you have, how do you stay motivated? Because I mean, you've also just moved recently, I believe. So how's that going?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, like, the motivation comes from like really making sure that I'm doing something that I feel like passionate about and that I feel like gives me purpose. I think whenever I've tried to do something that was not really something that I had my sort of heart and soul into it, I was just like, you just don't do it. You just don't kind of like sacrifice if you will. Now, nobody, I believe, has a social life. At least I hope so, because I don't. I don't know what to do literally with my evenings. But so it might be a little bit easier because we can't go out, and that could be like a nice distraction. But in general, you know, to find the motivation to sacrifice some of your spare time when you have, I think that's like one of the biggest things for me when you have a quite demanding job. When I started my side hustle, I was actually traveling weekly for my job. I was just like in sort of international sales and partnerships. So I was just like flying all over the place, and being able to actually do stuff on the side wasn't as easy. And that kind of forced me to understand where I would find like the best kind of like motivation out of. And that was like, for me, as I said, like, it's just like basically focusing on career and just like making sure that I would provide valuable content. So the feedback actually that people send me every now and then is really lovely, because it just keeps me going. But yeah, I would definitely say you need to find something that you are really passionate about. Also, just remembering though that can take over your life. So kind of try to find a balance.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, just following up on that last question, when people just send me even a message after this saying, oh, I really enjoyed that workshop, or there's a comment on your blog, it honestly, it's like a whole burst of energy. It's like fireworks go off in the background. It's just so nice. Even if it's just a thank you for posting, it's really lovely. So, I mean, Emma, how about you? What's your tip for staying motivated? I think your side hustle for 2 years podcasting, I can't get over this. This is amazing. I feel like such a failure in my podcast now in the best way. So how would you say you stay motivated to do yours?
Getting my other half to shout at me when I don't do anything. Basically just sort of, you work together. I think it's harder on your own because you kind of have to self-motivate, but because I haven't worked on something on my own yet, I've had, you know, sometimes I'm like, oh, I just don't want to do it. And we went, well, why? And then we talk about it and as to why. But I think staying motivated, you kind of have to know like what you're aiming towards. I mean, I just sort of used this opportunity to network with people and sort of build confidence, build contacts and things like that. So not necessarily, you know, getting me to that, you know, that job kind of thing, but just sort of helping to get, you know, my word out there and sort of develop my podcast. So I just say making sure that, you know, it's okay to take time off. Don't feel guilty for taking time off. I mean, this next year is going to be pretty crazy for me. So I'm just going to make sure that we're backlogged. We have a week where we just do everything and then we'll just relax. So if you're going to do it and you know, as I've said to people before, if you know you're going to have a busy few weeks and you just want to take some time off and stay motivated, do it all in a few days. It's going to be really horrible, but just make sure like then you can go, actually, I've done that now. So the good other thing, a lot of sites nowadays, you can just pop something on and it'll just self-upload and you can just leave it there and automatically do what it needs to do. A bit like blog posts, probably the same. But yeah, that'd be my advice. Just go, yeah, I can organise my time. Just make sure you take time for yourself.
Yeah, it really is key. I mean, Chelsea, you were just saying about burnout and everything else and maintaining the kind of level that you're at. I mean, what are your kind of tips or what are you thinking about maybe changing to kind of stay motivated?
Yeah, I think most of that comes from, well, I think the only reason that I'm able to stay, well, have been able to stay motivated with the whole thing is probably that I knew from the start that I wanted to do it for the reasons that I started it, but then I also, once I started, realised quite quickly that it was giving me a second layer of confidence in my career. Like from it, like as something gets more successful, you do naturally become a bit more confident, thinking, okay, maybe I can do it. And especially whilst I was constantly getting the job rejections, which throughout the whole of end of last year, I think with that, if you just keep in mind where you're trying to go with everything, it doesn't have to just be the side hustle. But if it contributes to maybe you getting a job, then that's your aim. And just the next milestone, I think, like, I guess mine's slightly different because I have those deadlines of the cycles. So every 2 weeks I know that we have an issue coming out. So I guess that sort of renews, maybe a schedule type thing would help, because that kind of renews my motivation every time we finish an issue. And then I kind of have the next few dates in the deadline and deadlines in the diary. I don't have a choice but to be motivated because you've kind of got those dates that are coming towards you, which I guess gives you, it gives me the motivation anyway. I think some of it's maybe down to personality, like whether you have, I'm just a naturally self-critical person, so I'm like, you do not have a choice. But I think that, again, I'm still learning to kind of tone that side of the voice down, because it's not all about the side hustle. You can have a life too. But yeah, deadlines probably would help in that respect, just kind of the constant motivation.
It's a good plan. Yeah, organisation, deadlines, goals. I mean, I love a New Year's resolution. I know not everyone does, but for me, having that kind of at the end of this year, I'd like to have this many followers on Instagram or have done this in my career. I mean, it is semi-motivation, and I really enjoy that. So I am very conscious that we've only got 5 minutes left, but we've got tons of questions. So what I'm going to do is, if I can, I'm just going to piece together a few questions that are all kind of similar, which is basically, what's your advice for establishing a side hustle? But what I might do to combine the questions is if I could ask you guys, what's your best advice for establishing your version of your side hustle? So for example, Emma, if I ask you first, what's your advice for establishing a successful podcast?
It just basically, what I'd start with is sort of find your niche and then sort of take it from there. Then start learning audio stuff on YouTube is really easy. So you can just buy your kit quite cheaply if that's what you want to do, or use your phone, and then establish that. Find guests, just start building that, and then find a platform that you're willing to upload to, get some skills in. Your first episode will always be the worst one. Sometimes it's just like YouTube. A lot of people say their first video is just, don't go back and watch it because it's bad. But it's just make sure that you're constantly uploading, making sure you're constantly there. Even if you take some time off, people know that you post on social media, taking some time off as well. So my advice is just be consistently upload. engage on social media and just promote it and just make sure that you engage with people quite a lot.
Brilliant. I mean, Aine, do you want to go next? I mean, feel free to choose any of your side hustles, any of your platforms, but how would you, what would your advice for establishing said version of a side hustle?
I think like all the things that Emma said definitely apply to like a website or a YouTube channel or social media. Like, you know, if you want to get like social media accounts, I was thinking also about the fact like never assume, I think there was a question about promoting, never assume that people are actually seeing your content, because this is something that I was really worried about at the beginning, kind of over promoting, but not everyone is online at the same time. So once you find your niche and you've decided what to do, whether it's a website, whether it's a YouTube channel or whatever else, make sure that you share it far and wide, be completely shameless, get your family involved, your friends involved, tell everyone. And as Emma said, like the beginning of your content is not going to be great, but you just need to get the word out there and then ask for feedback. That was the biggest thing for me. As soon as I started asking for feedback, I started getting ideas for what I could kind of like create next, and also just getting some honest kind of like reviews of actually the sound was really bad or that article wasn't quite as interesting as I thought. So I'd say like these things to set up is really helpful, especially if you're doing it on your own.
I 100% agree with everything you just said regarding establishing, promoting everything. Do be shameless, because everything on social media online really lasts about half an hour after you post it, and then it's on to the next thing. So that is incredibly true. But Chelsea, what's your advice for establishing a magazine and also promoting it?
I'd probably say, in addition to everything that A and Emma said, because they are essentially the same, I'd probably also say know your audience as well. So know who you're creating that content for when you kind of have the idea to create it. I guess I was kind of lucky in the fact that everybody that was working on the magazine was kind of also the audience or in that same bracket. So kind of the ideas that they were coming up with and still do come up with are exactly the type of content hopefuls want to see, because we were or are all hopefuls at some point, which is quite useful. But I guess if it's even if it's just your own thing, speaking to people that you intend to read your content or watch your content, listen to your content, because if you know what they want, then you can produce what they want, or kind of at least some version of that, even if you can't do exactly what it is that they want to see or ask for. Then if your audience are there, then you're onto a winner straight away, hopefully.
No, that's true. I mean, I know I keep using the example, but with journalism, for example, if I didn't share that I had posted this article in this website, then it wouldn't lead potentially to a commission in this website. So it's all about networking. It is all about sharing. It is definitely about being shameless in the best way. There's no shame, #no shame at all. And it is about being passionate as well, I'd say as well. So our time is up, guys. My alarm is about to go off. But thank you so much for joining us. And I'm sorry if we didn't get to your question today. Like I said, I will be on Twitter at ElliePilcher95. So any questions that you want answering, please do come tweet me, DM me, Instagram. I don't know about you guys, if you're happy as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yep. Great. So I'll be sharing their details, and like I said, the YouTube channel, publishing post, and the Slumbering SlothCast on my social channels as well.